Okay, thank you very much, Mary, for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon, and I want to thank the EPA for the opportunity to contribute to this conference here today and to outline a new campaign that Teagasc launched only 2 weeks ago, which is the Better Farming for Water campaign. So really over the next 15 minutes, I just want to give you a very quick overview of what that campaign is, how it came about, what it hopes to achieve, and how it's going to go about that. So to go straight in, I suppose, why a new water quality campaign and why now? So, I mean, we've heard this morning with the results of the latest water quality data and so on, that, you know, water quality is a national priority. We've known that for a long time. We can see the data is not trending as where we want it to go. We heard the results this morning. I think very importantly, two things that stand out. While it hasn't disimproved, it's not improving either, and it needs to improve. And the second thing that stood out this morning, and it's a very clear message, is that agriculture has a huge role to play. It is not the only sector. We all know that. We shouldn't dwell on that too much, bar identifying it, but we have to get on it and take ownership in terms of what each sector could contribute, and agriculture no different to anybody else. So that's really important in terms of the backdrop, in terms of it being a national priority. The other thing that's important to highlight, and I'm covering a little bit of the ground that Bill has already spoke about, but there are a lot of excellent existing initiatives in place, but we know from the way the water quality data is trending, we need to amplify those and we need things to move faster. To do that, we need to step up in the resources, we need to step up in the ambition. And I think Teagasc, I suppose, as an organisation, coming from where we are as a state agency, but also having research, advisory, education, all integrated with the stakeholder reach we have, obviously puts us in a good position with respect to being able to lead out on this campaign and take leadership. Bill has mentioned this already, and I'll reinforce it as well, that when it comes to, I suppose, accelerating adoption and accelerating action at farm level, there's three levels of support. There's policy, and that's very much on the regulation, on the compliance side. There's incentives, and very much I think there's been a dramatic shift over the last decade in terms of industry support that's available in terms of incentives for farmers, both in terms of maybe market prices, but also in relation to policies and schemes and so on, but particularly where our role and the role of this campaign is around the research, the advisory and education, which is that knowledge and awareness piece. The campaign, just in terms of its origin, so it has come about through to a specific request from the Minister for Teagasc to establish a multi-actor campaign focusing on a number of areas around integrating water quality advice into the work of all advisors, key messaging around water quality, particularly at local level, and I'll come back to that in a number of points later. And again, I suppose using the existing machinery, whether it's Teagasc events, public events, advisors, other stakeholders, research and so on, that we feature water quality more and more as much as we can, and leveraging all of those with the overall ambition around key messaging, around right nutrient, right place, right time, and right rate. And that has come up again in terms of the course of today as being a consistent message that we just need to amplify and be consistent on. Our approach in terms of developing the campaign, I suppose we've been working on this across the spring of this year. We started off with a lot of internal cross-Teagasc consultation, so we started broad internally across our research, advisory and education programs, I suppose identifying and trying to see where we could amplify the existing work that's going on, but also identify gaps and future opportunities. Then a focused group within Teagasc went away and kind of distilled that feedback and formulated a campaign proposal. And then more recently, we've gone out and done, quite sorry about the colours here on some of the slides, but we went out and spoke to a lot of stakeholders in terms of the direction we were looking to take the campaign, in terms of taking on feedback, ideas and so on. And I would very much say that stakeholder consultation is very much will be an ongoing activity within the campaign, particularly over the next few months. We launched the campaign 2 weeks ago at the official launch on the 30th of May, but over the next weeks and months we'll be putting a lot of the initial actions in place in terms of getting the campaign up and running. So the aim of the campaign, very simple sentence here in terms of the aim of what the campaign is setting out, but I want to highlight a few things. I suppose it's to support and accelerate the adoption of actions on all farms to improve all water bodies where agriculture is a significant pressure to good or high ecological status. And there's 4 key parts to that I really want to focus on. The first part is around that acceleration of the adoption of actions. We need more happening on farms in relation to actions which are appropriate to the issues that are local to that farmer and appropriate for that farmer, and we need greater adoption of the right measures. That's the first point. Secondly, it's about all farms. There's a lot of talk about different sectors, there's a lot of talk about different cohorts in terms of intensive farms versus non-intensive farms. We're of the firm conviction that all farms need to be looking at what the water quality impact may be on their farm. There are different measures, there are different things that are higher risk on some farms compared to others, that's for definite, but it is an issue for all farms. It affects all water bodies, and this is a really important point as well. Some water bodies are where we need them to be in terms of good or high status, and some aren't. If the local water associated with a farm is good or high, that farmer has a job to do in terms of keeping it there, not to let it decline. But likewise, if there's an issue with the water quality, well then equally the farmers in that community or the individual farmers have a job to do to improve it. So it is, it's an issue for all water bodies, but again acknowledging that not every water body has agriculture as a significant pressure, but where agriculture is the significant pressure, well then obviously farmers have a big role to play. And the final thing is about the target, and that's good or high ecological status. That's the target, that's in the Water Framework Directive, and that's what we need to be aiming for, and we've no option but to go for that. Key aspects of the campaign will be firstly building on existing initiatives. Bill has alluded to them, and the next slide will cover them in more detail, but we have an awful lot of things that are happening, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here in terms of duplicating that or replacing that, but it's about building on that, and maybe about tying some of the various elements of positive actions and positive programs that are in place, tying those together better in terms of consistency of message and consistency of impact. Secondly, it's about simplicity, and this is really important in terms of connecting with farmers in terms of encouraging and supporting action, and that's where the 8 actions for change come in. Very simple messages around actions and a template for farmers to evaluate where the farm is potentially at with respect to the actions it may need to take to improve water quality. And again, the third key element of the campaign is that it's for all farmers. It's not targeting particular sectors, particular intensity levels. There's something in this for all farmers. The measures might be different, but the approach and the need for everybody to consider and act is across all farms. Just to highlight, I suppose, the existing initiatives for a moment. So, I mean, on the wheel there, you can see there are a number of different elements called out. They're a little bit, maybe slightly small, but you can see, I suppose, firstly, in the background, we've had a very extensive research program for a number of years in relation to the agricultural catchments program. So obviously programs like that, which are building the research data and so on, and the resolution of data in terms of water quality there is very, very high. So that's obviously a program an initiative we want to build on. I suppose the ASAP program, the Agricultural Sustainability Support and Advisory Program, has been in existence now for a number of years. Coming in behind that this year, mentioned this morning already, is the Farming for Water EIP, again putting support there in place to back up, I suppose, the recommendations and the actions that are being recommended by ASAP advisors in the field, and helping the farmers further support in relation to implementing measures. Then we have a number of other areas with respect to projects or industry level projects. We have the Waters for Life initiative, we have the Blue Dot program, and then we have the more recent one, which is associated with the Tier Lawn Co-op, the Farming for Water for the Slaney project is coming through as well. So really it's just highlighting the fact that there's an awful lot there are a lot of programs out there. Some of them are local, some of them are more national, but we really want to bring the best of those together in terms of this campaign, that we're not duplicating effort, but we're trying to amplify and articulate and multiply the effort of those in terms of the overall impact. And I suppose linked to that then in terms of the campaign is leveraging on the likes of the Teagasc advisory and education programs that are in place, leveraging on, for example, the Signpost program, which has been in place now for a couple of years around climate action, but there's obviously overlaps between actions which are positive for water as there are for carbon and so on, and equally so for biodiversity and other programs. And particularly then as well looking at how we can develop some of the really good tools and data sets that are there, be it in catchments.ie, which is the EPA database on the water quality monitoring data. We have tools like NMP Online for nutrient management. We have tools like AgNav, which is recently developed for helping farmers understand better the actions they can take and the impact they're having in relation to carbon. And the Ag Planner, which is a new system Teagasc have developed recently in support of the ASAP program, again trying to support advisors in the field in terms of the efficiency with which they can connect with farmers with respect to action plans and so on. So building on those data and tools is a key aspect of the campaign as well. Stakeholders and the multi-actor element of this is really, really important, and just calling out that there are multiple stakeholders here across sectors be them at the level of farmers, be them at the industry level supporting farmers, policy, regulation, education and so on, and communications that all come in. And really the campaign is very much built around that, engaging all of those stakeholders as much as possible in terms of consistency of messaging for farmers, and consistency of ambition in relation to engaging with the programme. And then, I suppose, in terms of reaching the farmers, and this is a key component in terms of trying to build a campaign around what can be a very consistent and simple approach in terms of reaching farmers, whether it's with discussions around water quality or about steering in the direction of actions. And I'll take each of the three in turn, but really there's three key focus areas where the messages will be targeted around, and then within those there are 8 actions for change. And the three key focus areas, no surprises in this, they're around nutrient management, they will be around farmyard management, and they will be around land management. So nutrient management, farm management, farmyard management and land management, and they're the 3 focus areas. And then within each of those focus areas, these 8 actions for change, 3 under nutrient management will be focusing on N&P surpluses per hectare. And that's a very important, I suppose, source in terms of, we heard a lot about the impact of nutrients on water quality. So trying to reduce those N&P surpluses and giving farmers tools to be able to assess where their farm is at, and tools in order to reduce it will be important. Soil fertility in terms of maximising nutrient efficiency. And then finally, in relation to nutrient management, key focus on application timing around fertiliser, organic manure, appropriate times, appropriate conditions, and continually reinforcing best practice around those measures. And those measures collectively focus on reducing the source, they focus on improving nutrient efficiency, and they focus on also other benefits with respect to where those measures overlap, be it in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, soil health, ecosystem benefits, and so on. The second focus area is around farmyard management, and 2 of the 8 actions for change come in under farmyard management, and they are having sufficient slurry and soil water storage capacity, and that's an area that's under ongoing research in Teagasc in terms of having appropriate coefficients in terms of storage requirements and so on. And equally, the management and minimising nutrient loss from farmyards and roadways is a key part of the messaging there as well. And both of those, in terms of the farm infrastructure, have a key role to play in terms of setting the farm up for good outcomes in relation to water quality with respect to being able to manage those nutrients and manage dirty water and so on more effectively. Again, reducing the source measures, breaking the pathway measures, and again, other benefits with respect to water, ecosystem benefits, particularly around soil health when it comes to farm infrastructure and things like that. And the final area being land management, and the final 3 of the 8 actions for change, firstly being fencing off watercourses to prevent bovine access. Secondly, to promote the targeted use of mitigation actions, riparian margins, buffer strips, sediment traps, and so on, very much linked to some of what we heard this morning about hydromorphology and so on. And finally then, particularly, I suppose, focused on tillage crops around maintaining overwinter green cover to reduce nutrient leaching from tillage soils. Again, focusing on breaking the pathway, reducing the source, and also those additional ecosystem benefits around biodiversity, greenhouse gases, and soil health, and so on. In terms of, I suppose, the operation of this, how we intend to kind of run this campaign, and this will be a 7-year campaign, so this is very much taking a long-term view on water quality and the fact that, we have to make improvements in water quality in the medium to long term as well as in the short term. So 6 pillars around this in terms of the focus and how the campaign will be built. Firstly, very much focused on stakeholder engagement, a very important aspect in terms of the ask that was there from the Minister, but also acknowledging that there's an awful lot of people out there that can influence farmers. It's not just about the reach that Teagasc has. We have private advisors in the field who have a very important role to play. We have people who are interacting with farmers every day in the industry through other programs and policies and so on. So that's very important in terms of that stakeholder engagement. So very much part of this will be keeping stakeholders engaged in this process in as much as Teagasc themselves. Building awareness. A really important part of this is about improving the way in which we can connect farmers with their local water quality data. And that's a really important element of the campaign in terms of how we can do that. Upskilling, and I suppose taking upskilling and knowledge transfer together, I suppose leveraging what's there and what we can do in terms of both internal training and advisory programs within Teagasc, but also external to Teagasc in terms of training programs for stakeholders and so on. Research obviously underpins this as well. I mentioned the Agricultural Catchments Programme. There's other water quality research both inside in Teagasc and also in other organisations as well that we'll be building on there. And finally, I suppose, particularly going back to that importance of consistency of messages, a strong communications plan around that will be the sixth key pillar to the overall campaign. But I just want to spend the 2 slides left. I just want to focus in, I suppose, on, I've talked a lot about this, is about trying to amplify and build on existing initiatives that are there. But just to call out, I suppose, a few really important things which we will, I suppose, intending to target in this campaign as being a real focus that I think that adds value in a big way to what's already out there and what's already happening. The first one is connecting farmers with local data. I think, to be fair to farmers, we've seen a monumental shift in the engagement across an awful lot of farmers in terms of their appreciation of the fact that water quality is something that really is not going away as an issue. It's something that really needs to be taken seriously, and both at industry and farmer level, there is an appetite, I think, that's larger than it ever was before in terms of seeking to be active on this. And to take advantage of that, we need to connect farmers better with local information. And that's really, really important. And building on, I think we're very lucky to have the type of data we have in terms of catchments.ie and the data that's there in the EPA and other data sets. And I think how we can connect farmers in that in terms of more user-friendly interfaces where we can either tools for advisors and people speaking to farmers that can access that data, or farmers themselves, is something which is really, really important. Because if the farmer knows how they're being measured, which is what the nearest water quality monitoring station is, and what the story is there in terms of what that's telling them, that helps for the farmer to understand what their contribution is, and it helps to connect them then with an understanding of what the right actions might be. The second area, I think, of this campaign is a big focus on the tools. And just to call out too, I think we've been very active already in terms of incorporating some of the pollution impact potential maps that are there on catchments.ie, for example, into tools like like NMP Online for advisors to use when they're doing nutrient management plans, but also developments on things like nutrient surplus calculations. With the type of data sets now that the AgNav platform is connecting up, there's opportunity there to use that platform as well in terms of nutrient surplus calculations as well. A catchment approach is going to be key to this, and one of the initiatives that we're taking internally in Teagasc is the appointment of a number of catchment coordinators who actually don't work within, let's say, what are the geographical boundaries, for example, of our structure of Teagasc advisory regions, but that work actually and focus on a full river catchment and take that right from source to estuary and have a responsibility and an oversight for actually assessing what is the full picture in relation to this catchment, what are the various things that are impacting on water quality in one end of the catchment versus the other, and then to work with the stakeholders, with advisors and so on, to be able to really support, I suppose, a much more targeted approach in terms of the emphasis on how we improve the specific issues in specific parts of that catchment. And linked to that as well will be an increased capacity we're building at the moment in our research programme around catchment scale water quality monitoring in that regard as well. So that catchment approach will be very important. And finally, I suppose, that simplicity of message, reaching all farms with a simple approach with respect to 3 focus areas and 8 actions for change, and the simplicity of that, and that even as a template to engage a farmer in a discussion. Even if only 1 action for change is appropriate to the specific circumstances of that farm, it's a template, and a simple template, I think, for more to follow, to increase the reach we can have and increase the engagement of farmers and make progress in that way. So finally, have we the ingredients for success? I think definitely, as I say, we have a lot of existing initiatives there. Yes, we'd like to see the results this morning in terms of the water quality data being better in terms of faster impact, but we have a lot of ingredients in place, and trying to build on those, I think, gives us a great opportunity. I do believe we have a better and increasing all the time buy-in for farmers, industry and other stakeholders. We can see that in the number of projects and initiatives that are coming on board all the time, and I think this campaign hopes to capitalise on that. We have a motivated advisory service. We have a lot of interaction with programmes already, and we have an opportunity to build on that. New tools and resources to help us scale up. The reach of what we're doing in existing programs is a big issue, and this is trying to allow us to scale up on that, and I think we have a cross-industry determination to succeed. So with that, I'm way over time. Apologies, Mary, for doing that, but I hope that was a useful oversight. Thank you very much, everyone.